create jobs, and make entrepreneurial dreams come true. ACE, a nonprofit community lender, specializes in small business loans coupled with business advisory services. ACE has loaned more than $39 million, helped over 725 business owners fulfill their dreams, and ACE has helped its clients create or retain more than 6,200 jobs. These are the stories of those businesses we've helped reach success and claim their American dream.
Welcome to Ace's Best Stories. I'm your host, Eric Holtzclaw. Ace's Best Stories focuses on what it takes to successfully start, manage, and grow a business. We're talking today with Karen Davis Warren. She is the owner of One-on-One Physical Therapy. Karen, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so from the title, we probably know what your business does, but it may not be completely obvious. So tell us a little bit about what One-on-One Physical Therapy does.
Well, One-on-One Physical Therapy treats one patient at a time.
I like it.
So I read a good marketing book a long time ago, and it told me your business needs to describe in the title exactly what it does.
Okay, very nice. Yeah, companies make those. And nowadays we like to make up, such little funny names for our businesses, and we don't often do a good job of that. So yeah. So talk to me about what kind of services you guys provide.
So we provide physical therapy services for outpatient orthopedic patients.
Okay.
And that ranges from everything from post-surgery patients, chronic pain, low back pain is a very common diagnosis that we treat. We treat ages generally 8 to 80s or 90s. So a wide variety of patients, age ranges and types.
Yeah, beginning of this year, I was having problems with my rotor cuff. And so I went into the doctor and thought that I was going to have surgery. So I thought that I had torn something, ripped something, whatever. And she sent me to a physical therapist and fixed it. It was great. So they did needling and some things like
Trigger
that.
point dry needling. It's a very valuable tool in physical therapy.
Yeah, she was like, when I first started it, and they're like, we want to try this thing called needling on you. What do you think? I don't love needles anyway. But it was great. It really has been helpful. And I went in thinking at the beginning of the year, I'm going to have surgery. I'm going to be in a sling for 6 weeks, and just went through the physical therapy and it worked it out.
That's a wonderful story. We hope to hear more of those.
Yeah. Because I think people often, that's what they go in thinking I'm going to have something, but there's other ways to diagnose and treat it.
Right. A majority of the time, the physical therapist is your non-operative solution.
Yeah.
And it will often save healthcare dollars and time and improve the quality of life.
Well, I had gone in because if I was going to be in a sling, I wanted to start it at the beginning of the year. So I went like January 2nd. I was like, okay, if we're going to have to do surgery, let's do it now. And then it was 3 or 4 months of me going and them doing the dry needling and exercises and things. And it worked itself out. So it's been great. So talk to me about how you got into this. What did you do? What was your background?
Well, my mother was a nurse, and I knew I wanted to go into medicine. It was my goal from the time I was a small child. I saw her helping people. I liked the sciences. I liked math. So it was a nice fit. During my undergraduate years, I had the opportunity to work for a physical therapist on campus at the University of Southern California.
Okay. Yep.
And I saw, though at the time I thought I wanted to be a physician, I saw that the physicians treated people for about 2 minutes. They spent about 2 or 3 minutes with their patients, and the physical therapist saw them for an hour, and it was the physical therapist that made them better. So switched gears slightly because undergraduate coursework is very similar to pre-med, and went on to graduate school in physical therapy.
That is an interesting thought, because one of the reasons I owned a research company for a long time, and we would see a company for only a period of time. We would tell them what we thought was wrong, and we never knew if they took our advice. And so I used the analogy that I felt like a general practitioner. They come in and tell me, I've got this thing going on, and we'd say, oh, we think you have the flu, but we had no idea if they left and they were fine or they died, right?
Right.
And the physical therapist, especially like my experience that I had, you're there with them until they kind of release you and know that everything's working. So that's great, because then you do get to see the long-term, what worked, what didn't work.
Right. There's a lot of job satisfaction. In fact, I think I've read that physical therapists are second only to clergy in job satisfaction. So it's a very rewarding field.
Yeah. Very interesting. And I suspect too, you guys there's new things that come out that work, and you get to see how they actually work at the end of the day.
Oh, absolutely. I've been practicing for 24 years. And every year, every month, we continually take courses, learn new skills, learn new devices, techniques, and try to stay a little bit ahead of the game with technology in getting our patients better, which makes it very exciting. Every week's different.
Yeah. And so you decided to get into physical therapy, and then
So yes, and my family's from the East Coast, so once Emory let me in, I decided Atlanta would make a great place to spend graduate years, and it was a great program. And I decided to stay here after, had a fantastic offer from a great company, and started practicing as a physical therapist. But this was in the early 90s. So this was in the managed care era.
Okay.
And after 3 years of practicing in the traditional setting, which was what we call high volume traditional setting that was contracted, the insurance companies were dictating how much time we could spend with a patient. It was more of a business than it was healthcare.
Right.
It was more about managing the business, managing the numbers, and the HMO contracts. And I actually contemplated leaving the profession and going back to waiting tables because
wow.
I did that in college, and it was good money. So, and then at that time, I had an opportunity to go work with 2 surgeons. This kind of shifted my role a little bit. I opened up their physical therapy practice alongside their surgery practice. I started seeing how a business was run. I also started blocking off time for complicated patients. And instead of the traditional 2 or 3 patients at a time, and this is done because of insurance reimbursement. When insurance reimbursement for the session is low, that will dictate how much time a therapist can spend with a patient.
Right.
So this will oftentimes create a 2 to 3 patient at a time ratio to the therapist.
Got it.
So I was fortunate enough that the physicians I worked with side by side understood the benefit of carving out and spending uninterrupted time with a complicated patient. I started to really develop some good skills, having time to think, having time to spend quality time one-on-one
Right.
with that patient. And my patients were getting better really quickly, and I was getting better.
Yeah.
So
So talk to me, what is a complicated patient?
maybe more than one body part. Understanding regional interdependence. If your shoulder hurts and you're a pitcher, it may be because of left hip, or if you're a right-handed pitcher, it may be because of left hip weakness.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
So it's not related at all.
Well,
Yeah.
it
Or-
is related 100%.
okay.
Because if the hip is weak, your technique will alter. You'll
Got it.
drop your shoulder. You'll strain your rotator cuff, but it wasn't the rotator cuff's fault. So understanding regional interdependence, which is now... It wasn't a thing of the 90s. Now, I think most students, when they graduate physical therapy school, understand the connection between all the body parts and all the systems in the body.
Yeah.
But this allowed me to take my time and look through the whole patient and really treat the underlying cause. And actually, when you do that, the patients end up needing less therapy and reaching their goals sooner.
Got it. Very nice. Okay. So you moved from that and then decided, you sort of, I guess, had the experience of almost starting your own thing because you were working underneath and in that category, but then getting out and doing your own thing.
Right. Well, during the first 10 years of practicing, I did a lot of volunteer work. I just wanted to learn sports medicine. I love sports. I spent for 10 years every Friday night on the high school football sidelines covering football games.
Oh, wow.
2 or 3 practices a week. I would leave the clinic after an 8 or 10 hour day and go to the high school and take a look at injuries. And it was volunteer, but it enriched my knowledge base. It gave me exposure and experience that you can't pay for.
Right.
It gave me a lot of good communicative skills, marketing skills, and then I started to have a lot of feedback from some of my patients saying, "You're really good. You need to own your own thing." I treated a lot of people that were in business and own their own businesses and some really smart patients, and I started to listen to some of their advice.
Right.
But at the same time, the group I worked for had been tremendous to me in all aspects, financially and given me a lot of freedom to do physical therapy the way I thought it should be done under their roof.
Right.
So I kind of made my own luck. Based on my experience over those 10 years, I got an offer from the Women's Tennis Tour.
Oh, wow.
And this was an offer to travel full-time as an employee of the Women's Tennis Tour.
My sister would be so jealous. she's a nurse practitioner and loves tennis, and so that she travels all over to go watch the
right.
matches. Yeah.
So it was a nice way for me to leave the current position under good terms.
Right.
You know, I didn't want to go down the street and open up my own shop because this group had been so great to me,
right.
and it was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. So I was teased too with the offer, and they showed me my potential schedule, it started in Australia at the Australian Open. It included all 4 Grand Slams,
Oh, wow.
19 tournaments, and 35 weeks of travel. I had been to Asia with USA speed skating and some volunteer work through the Olympic Committee, but I had never been to Europe, and it was 8 weeks in Europe. So I couldn't pass up the job.
I would take that job in a
I
heartbeat.
had to do it.
Yeah.
So after a year of travel with the Women's Tennis Tour, which was tremendous experience again, during a timeout on the tennis court, we're the trainers, the ones that go out, and we have 3 minutes to do our thing while ESPN is filming you.
Oh, wow.
While this, Venus or Serena is waiting to go back in the match. So you're under pressure. And when you're under pressure, you've got to pull it together quickly. And that sharpened my skill set a little bit too. It also gave me some really good marketing materials when I got back.
That's awesome. That experience and what I love is the fact that you've taken advantage of so many things. The path to entrepreneurship, the path to owning your own thing is often about saying yes, like finding those ways of figuring it out. Like,
right.
Saying
you make your own luck, you make your own opportunities, and then you have to take the opportunities that come in front of you at the time. So, but after a year of travel, I was 37, and it was a little exhausting. It's treating Serena and Venus is different than being Serena and Venus, right? I'm in a room for 14 to 16 hours a day, a room without windows,
right,
treating the same athlete type over and over and over again. So at that time, I decided it was time to hang my own shingle. So I came back to Atlanta. I still worked for the tour for the next several years as an independent contractor. I wanted to stay involved in tennis. I still love the travel. So I did a handful of tournaments a year for the tour. But I decided to do my own thing.
Okay, well, we're going to stop there and come back after the commercial break and talk about what that looked like. So with the experiences you had before, did those relate? Were there things you learned that you didn't know? So kind of those kind of lessons along the way. So we're talking today with Karen Davis Warren. She is the owner of One-on-One Physical Therapy. You're listening to Ace's Best Stories. We come to you every Tuesday at 9 p.m. And we'll be back in just a minute.
If it wasn't for ACE, my business may have closed in 1 year.
If it wasn't for ACE, my business wouldn't be expanded as much as it's expanding right now. They were there for me at the time of my need.
If it wasn't for ACE, we would not be here today.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for ACE, I would very much still be cooking at an hourly rate, and I would have never impacted hundreds of lives and an entire community.
I still remember going to different kind of banks, big banks, and with papers, and these people send me back because I don't have, I had experience in the restaurant business, but I don't have, everything else this bank needed, and I believe in me.
I did the research in Adult Day. I had experienced it personally because my grandfather had Alzheimer's. So I wanted to do the business myself, get into it because I knew I could make a difference.
Initially, when we started, there was only one person, which would be me. And then the company I've grown from 1% to 8, and we provide quality assurance, quality control testing for FDA-regulated companies.
I think Grace not only completely understands what it's like to start off in an office connected to your laundry room or wherever she was, but she also understands the growth process, and I think that she does an excellent job of making sure that everybody who works with ACE has an understanding of the kind of struggles and celebrations that you can have.
ACE has helped us with putting our business idea into the market, working with us with the business, actually showing us, guiding me personally, how to solve some of my marketing issue problems or with the business planning.
You don't meet many lenders that are invested in your success. And, from their classes or presentations, seminars, they really do have a vested interest in your success.
The best advice I can do to small business owners is follow your dreams. You know, always follow your dreams, follow your heart.
Have a plan. Just because you have a passion for it doesn't mean that you can start a good business.
Get ready for the ride of your life. And definitely make sure that you look out for fantastic resources like ACE.
ACE is the way to go.
You're just the best. They really are.
And we're back. You're listening to Ace's Best Stories. I'm your host, Eric Holtzclaw. We're talking today with Karen Davis Warren. She is the owner of One-on-One Physical Therapy because she believes that physical therapy should be done one-on-one. So yeah,
That's
I could
correct.
do your marketing message.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
So you've been on tour. You've done all kinds of amazing things. It's kind of where we left our story when we went to the commercial break. And you decide now it's time to do your own thing.
Right. It's time to take the advice of some very smart patients that filled my ear along the way in the first 10 or 11 years. And so I took a laptop, BlackBerry at the time, dating myself, right? And rented a room from a chiropractor of all people, good friend,
Okay.
who had extra room. And I started seeing
And
one
are
patient
those
at a time.
close to each other? Is chiropractic and physical therapy close?
Well, there's a lot of overlap in what we do, and there are a lot of differences in what we do. They're very complementary fields.
Yeah.
So I do co-treat a lot with some fantastic chiropractors.
Okay. Yeah. So you started there with like renting
So
a room.
right, I did have to pay my mortgage, so I worked as
things don't go away
Yeah,
even
as a
when you start a
PRN
business.
physical therapist for a couple other companies to just keep some revenue coming in to pay my mortgage. But I would see patients at 7 a.m., 7 p.m. whenever they needed. I was there, and this building that I rented space from didn't have heat or air on the weekends, but I would go in bundled up or not bundled up, and I'd do whatever I needed to do just to start building my practice.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's smart in a couple ways. Of you didn't go out and get your own space to begin with, so you're kind of using somebody else's extra space and doing it almost as a side hustle, like it's something that
Yes.
you're doing. And your hours sound great because those are the times I could make it to something, right?
Right. So I knew, and I'd already worked as a physical therapist, athletic trainer. When you work in sports medicine, they're long hours, and you're just used to it. And I wasn't looking to work an 8-hour day or a 40-hour work week, and it didn't matter. And I took some other advice. I knew to get a good accountant and get a good attorney
Got it.
to set up the business and get some good advice from people that knew what they were doing. To not try. I didn't get my MBA.
Right.
I got my master's in physical therapy. So stick to what I knew how to do, and get advice from others that really knew what they were doing.
And that's such good feedback. What's interesting is that, it's almost like you going to your accountant and telling your accountant, hey, well, you should be good at physical therapy. Like we say that to business owners all the time, oh, well, you should be really good at accounting and bookkeeping and law and sales, when really you're maybe an expert in a category that they could never do. So if they can't be an expert at what you do, why would they expect you to be an expert at that? And I have to have that conversation often with business owners. It's like, it's okay. Let somebody else run the books, right? So,
Right.
yeah.
And that's the toughest part, because
Yeah.
I'm a master at my skill, but I'm not a master at owning the business or running the business. So I have to really rely on these other experts to give me information, to analyze our data, to help me make decisions.
Yeah. And so how did you know that how did you know when to move from it being more sort of a side thing?
So once my schedule was full, I coincidentally ran into a seasoned physical therapist who had just moved to Atlanta. We were introduced by a colleague, and he and I were very like-minded in our approach to treating patients. So I rented out a space inside of a gym for him to start seeing patients under my wing.
Okay.
We grew his space, we grew my space, we added another therapist in the same scenario. And when all three of us were quite full in our little spaces, we decided to move into a bigger space. At the same time, a good friend and orthotist was looking to expand his business, and so he and I went in together to the current space we're in now, which is a 12,000 square foot building.
Oh, wow.
So it was big. It was big, and we have big business plans. One of the plans was to get them better and keep them well. So if we could have multiple services under one roof,
Right.
oftentimes in physical therapy, we're going to take the patient so far, but we need someone to take over when we finish. Personal trainer, Pilates instructor, massage therapist, someone to help us keep them well.
Right. Yeah.
So we built our field of dreams. We built it hoping they would come, and they did.
Yeah, and I like that because talking about my own personal experience of doing the physical therapy, then you get to a point where it's sort of like, okay, we're done with you, and I'm like, right, but now what do I do, right? Like, how do I make sure I don't want to see you again, really? Like, I'd rather prevent, so do I need to, is it different types of exercise? Is it massage? What is it? And that doesn't seem to be, there's not a natural transition most of the time.
Unfortunately not.
Yeah.
At one-on-one physical therapy, being able to spend an hour with a patient, you get to know your patient. You get to know, are they someone that would benefit and be interested in personal training, ongoing Pilates, small group Pilates, massage therapy.
Yeah.
And we start to introduce this while they're under our care, not when we're finished. We start that transition early. If they don't work and live near our location, we know that may not be realistic, and we have a broad network throughout the Atlanta community of other practitioners that we can hand off our patients to and share their care. Our goal is to keep our patients well.
Yeah, and so talk to me a little bit about, you didn't decide to go off and do this kind of on your own. You brought in some other practitioners and worked together. Is that a common thing to build a practice like yours, or you just felt more comfortable that way? Like, why did you decide that there would be multiple?
Well, the physical therapists are all under one-on-one, and the Pilates instructors are as well.
Okay.
Early on, we understood that Pilates and physical therapy were a marriage made in heaven. And there were some excellent Pilates instructors out there who could use the Pilates method and take that patient to another level and keep them well. And Pilates and physical therapy really just go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And then we also knew that patients would benefit from massage and from personal training, and so we brought them under our roof. Part of it was also to look at the patient's dollar and the amount of money they're spending. We wanted to be able to do what we did and what we did best, and have other practitioners there to be able to provide the other services for the patient, and to look at the most cost-effective model for getting the patient better and keeping them well.
Yeah, and as we think about, the changing healthcare space, and how the consumer spending their dollar or what their choices are, those trends, I'm interested in your opinion on that. I mean, are you seeing more people do more preventative type things, or do you see a difference?
Yes, we see a big difference. We see a lot of people who are now making decisions on where they want to spend their physical therapy dollars and the rest of their money. If they can keep themselves well, then the cost savings is built in.
Yeah, I'm curious, that trend, that's what they sort of predicted would happen. I'm just not sure on the front line. I mean, I'm a consumer of it and know that healthcare is crazy right now,
right.
Specifically if you're out on your own.
And analogous to car insurance, we don't expect our auto insurance to pay for oil changes and tune-ups
right.
and maintenance. We've got to take care of that ourselves, and that does cost money. Mm-hmm. It costs money in gym memberships. It costs money in other services that you can invest in to keep yourself well, which will save you money and provide a better quality of life.
Yeah. So for you, what's next? Are you guys looking at other locations? Are you going to buy another building, add on to existing?
One of my goals is just to be able to offer this type of physical therapy and wellness to more people, to spread the word that you do have a choice. Even if your physician or referring specialty does not offer you a place that provides one-on-one physical therapy care, it is out there. You do not need to share your visit time with other patients. And the cost savings are built in. Though we are an out-of-network practice, you have 60 minutes of uninterrupted care, which means you leave work once to obtain those 60 minutes. Oftentimes, at other settings where patients are seen alongside other patients, 2, 3, or even 4 at a time, you might get 10 to 20 minutes of uninterrupted care. So you'd have to leave work 3 times to get that same one-on-one visit that we provide.
Yeah.
So it's really the value of your time that people have to assess.
Yeah, I got it. Okay, yeah. So the more intensive, then maybe the less you have to go. So there's over the long run, there's a savings for that.
Yes, and in this type of setting, and I've seen it for 12 years, the practitioners, the physical therapists, their skill sets grow enormously because they can focus on the patient.
Yeah.
They can spend the time figuring out exactly what's going on and the shortest route to getting the patient better.
And so from a challenges perspective, you talk about, you had to work a lot of hours and things, and then you decided to move into this space. What were some of the challenges you ran into? Some things maybe that you didn't expect, or that, if you could go back and tell yourself and say, hey, this is going to happen, what's some of those advice if somebody was considering doing something similarly?
I would say stay small as long as you can. Only grow and buy equipment and go into bigger spaces when you really, really are busting at the seams as where you are.
Yeah.
And only add additional staff again when you are really needing to
capacity.
add. Yes.
Yeah, and that's such a hard thing to manage because you know that you're stripped, but then when you move into the new space, it's almost like you're like, oh, I've got all this extra space now, I got to fill it again, right? So
right, and you pay rent or your mortgage 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Right.
So I would love to figure out how in the middle of the night we could actually have somebody in the building and generating some revenue. That's my next thought.
Yeah, effective use of the space.
Right,
Yeah, because there's
space.
so many companies and organizations that use their space and they don't use it all, right? Like they're using it. So how do you use it in that downtime? We talked to a lady that runs a yoga studio up in Charleston, and she says we're only here for a certain period, so they use it for event space and some other things like an after hours, and it's a way to maximize that investment. That's a smart way to look at it. Just out of curiosity, because you and I talked in the break about, often people go in thinking, hey, I'm going to have surgery. How or when would somebody think maybe that they should go to, like, I could see going to a doctor and the doctor saying, hey, I think you need to have surgery, and them wanting a second opinion. It sounds like a physical therapist might be a good second opinion.
They would be a great second opinion. In fact, I think a physical therapist should be your first opinion. So we have a direct access route in Georgia. So you could come to me with any ache or complaint. I can do an evaluation, a medical screening on you, and decide if you need to see a physician. Do you have something that warrants a physician visit, or should we try some physical therapy to see if we can clear this up completely without perhaps an unnecessary and expensive MRI or injection?
Right.
We're going to start treating the problem. And at One-on-One, we have a great network of very talented physicians and specialists in the area that we have personal relationships with, and that we are going to hold your hand and get you into their office quickly if needed.
Yeah. So I like that idea, because it's, we think of what hammer we have for whatever thing we're doing, and a doctor might immediately go to, I need to diagnose the pain or like give you medicine for the pain or something, but we haven't gotten to the root problem.
Absolutely.
So how do you get to that root
Well, absolutely.
problem?
And with the opioid epidemic and what's happening with pain in the U.S., I see this is my next event. I see this as a huge opportunity for physical therapy to step up and to get involved and start offering services.
Well, and we have, just in general, the way we've moved to technology, we sit wrong, we do everything wrong.
I'm going to fix your receptionist before I leave now, too, because I couldn't help myself. I didn't want to say anything to her before I got to know you both, but I'm going to fix her workstation before I leave.
Okay, I like that, because the thing is, like, we as our bodies, you're supposed to get used to certain things, right? And all of a sudden, all this technology, and we're using it in different and new ways, and then you're holding things the wrong way, you're sitting the wrong way, and then you end up with the aches and pains.
Right, from what you're doing all day.
Yes.
And you cannot undo that with an hour in the gym.
Right.
In fact, studies show that if you go to the gym in the morning for an hour, but you sit for an 8-hour day, you've just negated that hour in the gym in the morning.
Wow.
So you see some sit-to-stand stations, which are great, but then they're still not set up the right way. So your physical therapist is also a specialist on ergonomics and injury prevention.
Yeah. And the older you get, let me tell you, the more you have to start worrying about these things. You can get up and you're like, how did that start hurting? So, well, I wish you the greatest of luck. It's been really awesome hearing
Thank
your
you.
story. I love the concept of the one-on-one piece too. Like that's really interesting. Like that.
It's the way it should be.
That focus, being able to focus on the whole person and understand really what the root is. And when you talk with them, I'm sure you learn things that they didn't tell you, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You're like, oh, you're doing that. I had no idea. And that
Yes.
may be why you're still having this problem.
When they say if you listen to the patient, they will tell you exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
But if you're seeing 2 or 3 or 4 patients at a time, you don't have time to listen to the patient.
Yeah, well, listen to the patient, but even like listen to what they don't tell you, because I'm a big researcher, right? So it's not about necessarily what you tell me. It may be about something else in the conversation or something that
Right.
I'm like I pick up on, and I can only do that if you and I are one-on-one getting to know each other.
Absolutely.
So really smart, really smart. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So you've been listening to Ace's Best Stories. We've been talking today with Karen Davis Warren. She is the owner of One-on-One Physical Therapy. And I suggest that if you have any aches and pains, and we probably all do nowadays because of just the way that we sit too long and all that stuff, you should reach out to them. You've been listening to Ace's Best Stories. I'm your host, Eric Holtzclaw. Tune in next Tuesday night at 9 p.m. when we bring you another story along the entrepreneurial journey of owning and starting your own business.